Advanced Listening Project Meeting 3. Part 1. The story is about a poor miller who had 3 sons. After the miller died, his son took the meal. The second-born son rode off on the donkey, and the youngest son inherited the cat. The youngest son wanted to eat the cat and make some mittens out of its fur, so he pretended not to have hurt anything. Instead, he asked his master for a bag and a pair of boots, and he showed him that he did not receive such a poor inheritance. The master had seen the cat play cunning trick to catch rats and mice, so he gave him his bag and spent his last pennies on ordering a fine pair of boots to be made especially for the cat. The cat looked gallant in his boots, and he put it around his neck and lay by a rabbit warren, where he put bran and corn into his bag and waited for some young rabbits to come and rummage in his bag. Monsieur Puss, a clever cat, caught a young rabbit in his bag and went to the palace to speak with the king. He presented the king with a rabbit of the warren, which the Marquis of Carabas had commanded him to present to him. He also caught a brace of partridge in a cornfield and made a present of them to the king. The king received the partridge and ordered him some money for drink. Puss continued to bring presents to the king, always saying that they were from his master, the Marquis of Carabas. One day, the king was planning to drive his carriage along the river bank, and Puss in Boots advised the king to wash himself in the river and leave the rest to him. The king followed the advice, and the cat began to cry out when the king passed by. The most important details of the phrases Marquis of Carabas, coach window, poor Marquis, Lord Marquis are that the king commanded his guard to assist the poor Marquis. The cat came up to the coach and told the king that while his master was washing, there were some rogues who went off with his clothes, and the cat had hidden them under a great stone. The king then commanded the officer of his wardrobe to run and fetch one of his best suits for the Lord Marquis of Carabas, and the Marquis was very pleased to meet him. The king's daughter took a secret inclination to him, and the Marquis of Carabas fell in love with him to distraction. The Marquis of Carabas is a powerful cat who is overjoyed to see his project succeeding. He meets with some countrymen who are mowing a meadow and threatens them with punishment if they do not tell the king that the meadow belongs to his lord, Marquis of Carabas. The king is so pleased with the success that he invites the cat to ride along with them, with the lifeguards trotting alongside. The Marquis then meets with some reapers and tells them to tell the king that all the corns belong to the Marquis of Carabas. The king is very pleased with it and congratulates the Marquis, whom he congratulates. Then the king and the Marquis go to their castle. Puss the cat was asked by the miller's son to visit the castle of a great ogre near his home. The ogre was able to change himself into a different creatures, such as a lion or elephant. Puss was terrified at the sight of a lion so near him and climbed up the curtains to see that the ogre had resumed his natural form. However, the cat warned the ogre that the king was coming with his army and means to destroy him. The ogre looked out of the window and saw the king waiting outside with his soldiers and was in despair. The most important details of the story of Lord Marquis of Carabas are that he was able to change himself into a mouse and then eaten him, and that he invited the king to his castle. The king was charmed with the Marquis' good qualities and offered to marry him, which he accepted. The Marquis then became a great lord and never had to run after mice again. The most important details of this story are that the Marquis was able to change himself into a mouse and then eaten him, and that the king was charmed with the Marquis' good qualities and offered him. The king then asked the Marquis to become his son-in-law, which he accepted and then married the princess. Part 2. The topic of the audio is about the West Coast agent of the Interurban Express Company, Mike Flannery, leaned over the counter of the express office and shook his fist. Mike Flannery, the West Coast agent of the Interurban Express Company, and Mr. Morehouse, the West Coast agent of the Interurban Express Company, had a long heated argument over a soap box with two spotted guinea pigs in it. Flannery demanded that Mr. Morehouse pay for the guinea pigs, or else he would file a claim for the overcharge. Mr. Morehouse then offered Flannery 50 cents for the guinea pigs, but Flannery refused. Mr. Morehouse shook his head savagely and said, "Nonsense." The argument had been long and heated, and at last Mr. Morehouse had talked himself speechless. Mike Flannery is a loyal friend to the Interurban Express Company. He offers Mr. Morehouse 50 cents for the junior pigs, but if one hair of the pig's head is harmed, he will have the law on him. Mr. Morehouse goes home raging, but his son, Sammy, knows better than to ask him for the guinea pigs. He storms into the house and finds the ink, but Miss Morehouse is guiltily guilted for having born and reared a boy. When the ink is found, Mr. Morehouse reads the completed letter and smiles triumphantly. Mr. Morehouse and receives a letter from Interurban Express Company asking for a rat of guinea pigs between Franklin and Westcote. He wrote to the claims department and sent 6 pages of sarcasm, vituperation, and argument. A few weeks later, he received a reply from the claims department. His letter was numbered OK and started through the regular channels. Duplicate copies of the bill of lading manifest Flannery received for the package were pinned the letter and passed for the head of tariff department. Mike Flannery is the head of the tariff department. Received a letter from an agent in Westcote, NJ, asking why a consignment was refused domestic pet rates. He looks at the papers and realizes that the pigs are in good health, but the clerks want him to call in the pig doctor and have their pulse taken. Flannery goes to the rear of the office and looks into the cage and finds that the pigs are all well and healthy, and he has paid out $2 for cabbage. Morgan head Morgan, head of the tariff department, received a letter from Flannery asking him to collect $2.05 for cabbage eaten by his guinea pigs. Flannery drives the express wagon to Mr. Morehouse's door, where he finds a bill for $2.05 for cabbage eaten by his guinea pigs. Mr. Morgan consults the president of the Interurban Express Company, who agrees that guinea pigs are pigs, but not rabbits. The president asked Professor Garden if guinea pigs were of the domestic pig family, but he was in South America collecting zoological specimens, and the letter was forwarded to him by his wife. The president forgot the guinea pigs, but Flannery did not. Flannery was given authority to Flannery was given authority to collect for 800 genuine pigs at the rate of 25 cents each, but was too busy to open the letters and telegrams from the audit department. He had 4,064 genuine pigs to care for. Flannery and his 6 helpers worked feverishly to ship 280 cases of genuine pigs to Franklin, with 700 of 4 more genuine pigs Then, when they began picking them, McInerney sent the new picks to Express Company's warehouse, but an inspector arrived and fined six boys carrying baskets full of junior pigs. Flannery argues that pigs of any nationality are domestic pets and go at the lowest rate. Part 3. Great leaders are often described as charismatic, dynamic, inspiring, and confident public speakers, but history has also seen people who don't fit this description. Introverts are usually happy to let the extrovert take the attention, but they are compelled to act due to circumstance, having put them in a position to make change. Some of our great creators, such as J.K. Rowling, Darwin, and Steve Wozniak, we're introvert too. Why is the world so set up for extrovert and so hard for introverts? Nowadays, most schools and workplaces are set up with the extrovert in mind, but why is this? Introverts are often thought to be more sociable and outgoing, yet they tend to get higher grades. Studies show that teachers think extroverts make better students, even though introverts actually tend to get higher grades. In the workplace, most officers are open plan and introverts are judged negatively by their teachers. However, introverts typically take fewer risks and make more careful decisions. It is not just suggested that we get rid of extrovert and send them off to the library for hours and a day of solitude until they learn to tone it down. We need to give introvert and extrovert space to be themselves and work on complex problems in the way that suits them best. This can be done by creating space in office and conference for people to work on their own, giving stuff away days and team building days, and listening to those who sit between on the scale.